mentioned on the show before that 1 out of 4 people deal with some sort of mental health disorder. It could be anxiety, it could be PTSD, it could be bipolar disorder, it could be a whole gamut of things. And 1 out of 4 is just the people that we know that are diagnosed. What about the others that hasn't seen a mental health professional or being diagnosed with some sort of disorder? They're pretty much, going through their life, maybe dealing with symptoms that they understand and have learned to live with, or maybe just symptoms that they aren't aware of that they just figure is a part of their, natural makeup or how they was brought up or something of the sort like that. So we don't know. 1 out of 4 seems a little low. I'm pretty sure if more people had access to proper health care, that number would be a lot higher. But obviously people deal with their mental health and they're able to deal with certain things that don't necessarily stop them from having a regular life. You can have a normal life and still have an anxiety disorder. You can have a normal life and still deal with bipolar disorder. And you can also have a romantic life as well. And, a healthy romantic life is, it's good. It's great. It's a preferred way of living, if you ask me. Having somebody that's in your corner that's a great teammate and still get to have an intimate relationship with the person is great. But mental health is a real thing, right? So the likelihood, just going off the numbers, that you may or may not be in a relationship with somebody who has some sort of mental health issue, it's fairly high. If you aren't, you probably have been in a relationship with somebody who's dealt with it. It's just something that I think doesn't get enough attention. And I think a lot of people who do live their life with somebody and they're married or they're in a serious relationship and they know that their spouse or significant other has some sort of mental health disorder, they don't get enough credit. They do not get enough credit for being a great teammate. But some folks are in relationships like that, and they, unfortunately, I've seen it, don't do a good job. I've seen people will be taken advantage of due to their mental illness numerous times. Someone who may not have the self-confidence, somebody who may be a little bit timid in social situations, or not the type of person that wants to engage in conflict. You might see the partner take advantage of that fact and be borderline verbally or physically abusive to that person, not knowing that this person is probably dealing with something that they need to see a mental health professional over. But there are a lot of people out there that do a lot of good work. They sit in on therapy sessions with their partner. They practice all the things that is needed to be a good teammate to somebody who's dealing with a mental health issue. So that's essentially what I wanted to talk about today. How to be a better partner, how to be a better companion, especially when you're in a romantic relationship with somebody who's dealing with a mental health disorder, mental illness, or, exhibiting some of the signs that they may be dealing with it, even though they may not be diagnosed with it exactly. So how can you be a better teammate in situations like that? I got a little bit of experience with this, considering that my wife has to deal with me. And I know I could be a little bit of a pain in the ass sometimes to deal with, because, I get mood swings, I could be in a great mood one moment, and then the next moment it could have been a little slightest thing that just totally drains my energy and drains whatever enthusiasm or joy I had. And I guess being that when I'm in a good mood and I'm happy, I kind of could fill up a room with, my personality. And I guess when you get the opposite of that, you kind of suck all the energy out the room, and it's pretty noticeable. And, I hate the fact that she has to deal with that, but she's been a great teammate. That's why I married her. So, I have some experience with that, but I think it's a couple of core things that you definitely need to have going for you in your favor if you're going to be a good teammate. And I think we all could do a better job of it, to be quite honest with you. It could be a personal friend, but we talking about romantic relationships for the most part. Make sure you stick around after this, because I have a interview that I'm very excited to share with y'all. Speaking on the topic, I have an interview with Christina and Eddie Sledge, who just wrote this amazing book that's now available on Amazon called Christina and I. It's about two Brooklyn sweethearts who grew up in the jungle that is Brooklyn, who just had this love story that has so many plot twists, so many crazy turns, and so many issues with family and heartache and unfortunate circumstances. But they managed to stick together and still persevere. And they're going on 21 years of marriage, and it's a beautiful story. It's a very engaging book. I encourage anybody who wants something new to read to go on Amazon and purchase it. I believe there's a Kindle version and a paperback version, and it's a good read, y'all. And it's right up the alley of what we about to talk about. So let's talk about some of the things that you definitely need to have going on for you if you're going to be a good partner for somebody who has a mental health disorder. One, the first thing you gotta have is something that some people really lack this. You gotta have empathy. Now, what is empathy to be exact? All right, empathy is simply being able to understand someone's thoughts, feelings, and circumstances from their point of view. It's a recognition of someone's struggle, even if you can't identify with the struggle yourself. You know, you see that they're going through something, you've never been through it, but you still have the wherewithal to understand that, you know, I get where you're coming from, even though I haven't experienced it myself. Two psychologists broke down empathy into 3 different types, and I like how they broke it down, and I think it's fitting. So I'll let you know what they are. It's cognitive empathy, which is the ability to understand how someone is thinking and their perspective. It's essentially putting yourself in their shoes. An example would be maybe a friend of yours lost a partner during COVID, and now they're a single parent. You may not never be in that situation yourself, but you may understand that it's incredibly painful and the grieving process will be very difficult, and that it may have an effect on y'all's friendship or y'all relationship. So you have the ability to put yourself in their world, even though you're not actually enduring it yourself. The other type is emotional empathy. This is when you're able to put yourself in someone's emotional space. Like we've all seen the video of an athlete sustaining an injury, or perhaps a game show where somebody is going for $1 million and they get the last question wrong and they lose all the money. It's painful. It's cringeworthy. And even though we may not have been in the exact same situation, we understand that it must be something hard for that person to deal with. And lastly, you have compassionate empathy. This is where cognitive empathy meets emotional empathy and is then followed up with this urge to want to actually help the person. Maybe it's a phone call to a grieving friend. It could be a donation to a cause that gripped your attention or got your spirit. Or maybe it's you sitting down with your partner and going to a therapy session this time, instead of just letting them go and telling you how it went. Maybe you sit in on this one. So how do you become more empathetic if it's something that you lack in, right? Because not everybody has that level of empathy that is necessary for their particular situation. So what can you do to make yourself more of an empathetic figure in your relationship? Well, at least as far as I can tell. One thing you could do off the bat is become a better listener. Be an active listener. You know, you're not just hearing to hear, you're hearing to understand, digest, and also give feedback. To me, that's the one critical thing about people who don't listen well. You don't give feedback. So that person is probably telling you something that's on their heart, something that's on their mind, something that's in their spirit, and they telling you this. It's all well and good to soak it up like a sponge, but maybe address them in a way about how you feel about the situation. How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel confused? Do you not know where to start? And can you maybe give that person some feedback about, well, I'm lost, but I could try my best to understand where you're coming from, and then we could work through this thing together. Something like that. That will give at least some ease to the person that's dealing with the thing that they're dealing with, whether or not it's anxiety or whatever. Another thing you can do to become more empathetic is expose yourself to differences, different points of views, different values, different life experiences. Get yourself out of your comfort zone. A lot of times people who lack empathy put themselves in situations where they're so used to doing things the way they want to do it, living life how they live on their terms, on their rules, that when you put something at their table that says, well, I'm dealing with this is having me struggle, you're not really able to identify with it because that's not something that you allow into your world. You don't allow weakness into your world. You don't allow doubt into your world. Well, some of us do deal with doubt. Some of us do deal with moments where we feel weak or we feel inadequate. So what can you do to become more empathetic? Maybe expose yourself to people who deal with different things that maybe you aren't familiar with. By doing this, maybe you become more understanding to people's plight. And you can say, you know what? I've never been in that situation, but I have an idea of your perspective because I've exposed myself to this and I'm here with you. The second thing I think is important when it comes to dealing with somebody in a relationship where mental health is an issue, a major issue especially, is being a good listener and observer. A listener and observer simultaneously. Pay attention to the changes in behavior without overreacting to them. So somebody in a relationship may be dealing with depression. They're having a bad day. They do not feel like getting up out of bed. It's a Saturday. It's beautiful outside, but inside, internally, it's a thunderstorm that they just can't cope with. And the only shelter that they feel is this bed or this room. They don't want to leave the house. They don't have the energy to do so. It really shouldn't be you in that position to say to this person, like, you know what, you need to get up. We need to go outside. Get over it. You'll feel better when you get outside or something like that. It's like maybe your intentions were good, but I think that's a little bit of a overreaction to say to somebody that, well, all you need to do is this, without concretely understanding the problem of how they got to that position in the first place. As far as the listening is concerned, well, also pay attention to things that may change in their mannerisms. It could be the subtle things. Maybe they're not depressed in a room somewhere, but maybe they have this fit of rage that just came out of nowhere. Or maybe they overreacted to something that you felt was, very trivial. Maybe that's where you come in at and say, you know what? I feel like there's something a little bit different about you today. It seems like you're a little bit on edge, or it seems like you're feeling a little bit timid, or you're not your usual confident self. You don't feel like you are present in this conversation that we're having. You picking up on them subtle cues may be something that your partner doesn't recognize, or if they do recognize, they might appreciate by the fact that you took notice to that, and maybe then they will divulge certain things that they may not have been comfortable divulging otherwise. Being a good listener, obviously that's good in any relationship, right? So do less talking. When it's time for somebody to speak, it may be the hardest thing that they're doing in their life, exposing themselves like that. It'd be in your best interest to do less talking and do more listening, and be a great active listener. Another thing you need to do to be a good partner, validate your partner. And what do you mean validate? Well, essentially all we are saying there is ensure your partner, your loved one, that you take what they're going through very, very seriously. The last thing somebody wants to do is feel like they have the level of comfort to actually tell their partner something about themselves, about something they feel is a shortcoming or something that they're not proud of, or have the confidence in you to tell you that, you know what, I deal with depression, or I am bipolar type 2, or I have anxiety and I don't want to go out to concerts and stuff like that. And they're trusting you with this information, and you just summarily dismiss it like, okay, it's not a big deal. People deal with that all the time. Let's just go. Or you shouldn't really let it affect you this bad or whatever. That's nonsense. All right. You need to make sure that your partner feels safe with you, because this is somebody you spend an intimate time with. And out of all the people in the world, they choosing to spend it with you. If you don't validate them, it makes them feel unsafe. And if they don't feel safe with you, they can never be their true self with you. Another thing you can do to set yourself up for success is understand the symptoms of mental illness. So mental illness, the list is growing every year, every month. There's something new that comes up. We just starting to learn so much about, mental illness, mental disorders, mental health, mental wellness. We learn so much every day. But, the common ones, clinical depression, anxiety disorders, PTSD, those are ones that I think everybody should know the symptoms. That way, maybe not self-diagnose in all the cases. I know some you can self-diagnose, others you need like a medical professional to diagnose you. I think knowing the symptoms, you can do a better job of being preemptive and saying, I'm starting to notice some things and maybe we need to get ahead of this now before things get, worse. So let's just go through some of the symptoms right now. That way you can keep it in your mental Rolodex, and going forward, maybe you could kind of, bring it up with your partner and say, hey, that's kind of exhibiting some of the signs of this, or exhibiting some of the signs and symptoms of that. So let's talk about clinical depression. What it is: the persistent feeling of sadness or loss of interest that characterizes major depression and can lead to a range of behavioral and physical symptoms. This may include changes in daily behavior or self-esteem, and depression can also be associated with thoughts of suicide. Anxiety disorders. Symptoms include stress that's out of proportion with the impact of the event, or also the inability to set aside a worry or a restlessness. That person just can't get over that one thing that it's just bothering them. Or maybe they took something that was very small in your eyes, or that may very well be very small in general, and they just totally overreact to it. Essentially what that means. Also, hypervigilance, irritability, restlessness, lack of concentration, racing thoughts, unwanted thoughts. A lot of times you see fatigue and sweating of the body. Excessive worry. It may lead to a fear of impending doom, insomnia, nausea, trembling. Those are some of the signs of anxiety disorder. And PTSD, a word that's, often thought of in the realm of veterans, people who come back from overseas or seen combat. But it's all about trauma, and trauma takes many different shapes. It's a strange monster. So you could be an Iraq war veteran, or you could be somebody who grew up in, Chicago, Illinois, that, seen it all: death, destruction, drug abuse, physical abuse, poverty. It's all trauma. And when you deal with that, you got to deal with the consequences at some point. So PTSD. Symptoms may include nightmares, unwanted memories of the trauma, avoidance of situations that bring back the memories of the trauma, heightened reactions, anxiety, a depressed mood. Some of the behavioral things is like agitation, irritability, hostility, self-destructive behavior, or social isolation. The psychological stuff is flashbacks. You get fear, severe anxiety, and mistrust. You get these big changes in mood sometimes, which is like a loss of interest and pleasure in activities, or guilt, sometimes loneliness. Often people who have PTSD have trouble sleeping. It's like insomnia, or they may have these very vivid nightmares. Another thing that's common with PTSD victims are emotional detachment or unwanted thoughts. So, those are some of the symptoms that go along with what I call the big three. I'm not a doctor, but those are the ones that I've come across in talking with people and reading, different forums online and stuff like that. So I think being aware of that does a service to everybody, because you just never know. Somebody having trouble sleeping because they have bad habits, or maybe they just don't prioritize getting to sleep at a good time, can be one thing. But what about the person who's dealing with, PTSD because they grew up in an abusive household? They may set that aside and never bring it up because it's just something that's been tucked away dormant for so long. But maybe if you take notice of the symptoms, you may be able to say, okay, you did tell me about that time when you was a kid, when you was 9, when such and such and such happened, and you do have trouble sleeping, or you do get irritable in situations where we watch a movie and the child is, abused or something like that. Maybe it may be some connection there that we want to dig into a little bit further. So all those things help out, man. Being a good partner, and I want to take time to thank my wife for dealing with my ass. I know I could be a little bit difficult sometimes, but like I said, mental health affects a lot of people, millions and millions and millions of people, and I think we all can do a better job at being better teammates with one another, but especially with the person that's, sleeping beside you or in a relationship with you that has your best interests at heart. Because I think they're counting on you to have their best interests at heart too. So that's just a little advice from me. But I did tell y'all about the interview, didn't I? So I welcome on to Mind On Matters Christina and Eddie Sledge after the release of their new book, Christina and I, for a nice candid discussion about how they dealt with mental health growing up, how they got past all the traumatic experiences in their life and still managed to endure and have this beautiful marriage, and just have a cool conversation about what some of the things that we can do to learn from their story. Christina and Eddie Sledge. All right, so it's kind of funny talking to y'all tonight because, after reading y'all book, I kind of feel like I know y'all a lot, even though we never met. So it's a pleasure to finally get to talk to you. Christina and Eddie Sledge, welcome to Mind On Matters.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Nice to meet you as well.
Truly appreciate it.
So, reading the book, I know Brandon, who's like a brother to me. So it was finally nice to kind of see a different side of the family, kind of reading through the history or whatever like that, and it was quite the page turner, I must say. So I want to say congratulations first off on this. Was your first book?
Yes. Yep.
This is a heck of a way to start off. So to do number one like this is quite the feat. So, well, first let me ask, what was the motivation behind writing the book in the first place? Where did you guys find it in your heart and your spirit to say, you know what, this is something that we want to do?
Well, when I was in grad school, I took this family relationship class, and I just needed the credits, and I was like, well, I know about families, this is too easy, and I learned so much in it, but we had to partner up with another person in the class, another student, and I had to write these 50 pages of her life, and she had to write 50 pages of my life. So, I had to know almost everything about her, the same thing with me. And, at the end of the class, at the end of the course, she wrote the paper, and I read it, and I was like, wow, I never saw my life like that. And I told her, I was like, well, your life was crazy. You had a crazy life. She's like, no, it's never compared to what you have. And then I never read it and, even thought anything about my life. And then I read up the paper, and I was like, wow. I need to know more on this, and it just motivated me to start connecting dots to who I am, and it took me to understand that this is okay for me to say, okay, I have flaws, and I understand that my history could have flaws too, or not perfect. So I was happy to accept it. Once I got happy to accept it, good or bad, just let it go. I let Chris read it. I wrote my autobiography on the side and let Chris read it. And, I can't tell my story without her in my life. So dramatic. I never looked at it like that. I just thought it was life. So, I told her, I can't tell my story without you in it. And she just went along.
So how much of a hard sell was it for you, Chris?
Well, at first I was very reluctant because we are pretty private up until this point. We weren't even on social media. Only thing I was on was LinkedIn. Not until recently when we started promoting the book, then we got on social media. Mm-hmm. So it was something that I wasn't 100% comfortable with at first. But then, as we started really talking about it and we saw the dichotomy reflecting on it and saw the dichotomy of our childhoods, we realized, wow, we surmounted different obstacles, but we were able to come together, and we saw the times that we could have met. That was the other astounding thing, was, the fact that we kind of had this predestined love story, and we thought, oh wow, this could be a good story to share with other people. And I thought, you know what, I think I'm at the point in my life where I think it's helpful to share these things with others, so they can see that they're not the only ones when they go through traumatic situations or, a tough time, and just let folks know that they're not alone in their journeys.
Oh, great. You both had to endure life's hardships growing up to varying degrees, and y'all both had very interesting childhoods, to say the least. But while composing the book, you obviously had to kind of dredge up old emotions, old thoughts, old decisions that you made, things of that nature. What was the most difficult thing to talk about when composing a book?
I think for me, it probably was just the fact that, when I was moving to Philadelphia, I had a really tough time. And someone also kind of pointed out the fact that during that time, both Eddie and myself, we were going through different environments. Like, we were changing environments at the same time. I went from a very structured environment to an unstructured one in Philly, and he was in an unstructured environment, and he went to the Army, which was very structured. I think that time really was tough for me. So to kind of dredge up those memories again and just kind of go back to a place when I was a starving student working 3-4 jobs.
Slumming it.
Yeah, those were rough times. I mean, I got evicted. It was tough. And I remember I just used to pray a lot. And I also had to see a therapist when I was going through that. That was the first time I ever went to see a therapist,
Bravo.
Yeah. And so I needed help. That was the first time in my life that I ever felt that I had a need for mental health assistance. And so I sought that out while I was at Temple, and I'm so thankful for it. And it really helped me kind of get through those tough times. So that was the roughest, I think, for me.
Seeing how far you came, though, when you look back on that time, though, what do you kind of think about the decisions you made? Like, do you feel like you handled yourself appropriately, or is some things that you would have changed?
Yes, good question. Yes, I actually, when I think back on it, I don't think I would have did anything differently, because it really helped make me who I am today. And it shaped me in a way to help me learn how to be resilient. So I'm very thankful for that.
What about you, Eddie? What was the most difficult thing for you think, that you had to kind of, resurface emotionally?
I had to write down and remember. The rough part was understanding and accepting that although I love my father, I understood that I hated him when I was little. And, before I started having those memories, my father was the greatest man in my life. But
right now we talking about Big Eddie.
Big Eddie.
Just so we clear, right? Okay, got you.
But and in my eyes, he's not the greatest of everybody, but greater than me. And he could do wrong, but as a teenager going to adulthood, he could do no wrong as to say, I don't want you as my father. But growing up as a young kid until I got to that age, the teenager, writing it down made me realize that I really, I despised him, but I'm a child growing up in an adult world, so I don't know what he's going through, Big Eddie, like I said in the book, he left his family in Tennessee when he was 14 years old and made it all the way to New York. And we don't know how. So, he grew up without a man or father in his life. So the things that he learned, he was just passing on to me. We don't know exactly, why he was drinking so much. I mean, he was never drunk, but he's probably washing away his pain. But for me to understand that, for me to tell my story and accept who I am, I hated him. I despised him at that early age. That was a huge part, because I had to tell myself in my heart, like, wow, like I really didn't like him at that age, but I didn't understand him either.
You talk about Big Eddie as far as being a larger than life figure at one point in your life, and then you kind of, coming to grips with the fact that that feeling may have been a false feeling that you just, romanticized as you was a young child. But a lot of the personality traits that Big Eddie had didn't really seem like they transposed themselves onto you, especially like romantically. He came off, at least in the book, as far as I'm concerned, came off a little bit like a playboy, a little bit of a Rolling Stone. But from reading about your life and how you conduct yourself and how you and Chris's marriage goes, you kind of seem like you're the complete opposite. What do you think contributed to the fact that you seem like you're the complete opposite of Big Eddie when it comes to being a husband, being a father?
I learned a lot from him, and I learned, like I say, I learned how to love a woman and what kind of woman I should love. Even though he had, he's cheating on my moms and these other women. He taught me, when I know she's the one, and then take care of home. If you don't take care of home, someone else will. So I know I got the one, and I just take care of home. So I mean, we kind of opposite of it, but what he was showing and teaching me, I grasped it. But yeah, but he lived in a different time than I did. The 70s and 80s, I don't know what he was going through and his playboy life, but I knew that, when I know she's the one, then I got to take care of her. So that's one thing he taught me. So
Chris, did you have much of a relationship with Big Eddie, like early on and when you was getting to meet little Eddie?
Wow. Not so much in the beginning. I mean, he definitely did come off as that ladies' man. I remember when he first met me, he has the saying, and it was in the book, every woman that he meets, he calls them good looking. So
this is when you were in high school, right?
Right, yeah. I was like 14, and he said to me, hey, good looking, how are you? So I knew right away, like you said, he was a ladies' man, and I call it charming. I felt like he was really charming, and Eddie definitely, that rubbed off on Eddie. Eddie's very charming, and that definitely was something that Eddie took from him. But then, he was very instrumental. Big Eddie was instrumental in bringing us together. Our proposal was orchestrated by him. With him saying, hey, what little Eddie asked you to marry.
Oh, don't give it away.
Okay.
Might have some readers out there that want to
that
plot twist shit. There's plenty of them in there, so yeah, I don't want to spoil that bit. That was the best part. So yeah. So you said you got the impression already off the rip that Big Eddie was a little bit of a ladies' man, like you say. So being that he kind of rubbed off on your Eddie in that way, how did you kind of decipher that when Eddie was telling you something that his feelings was actually genuine? That it wasn't
that's an excellent question. Great question. You know what? The good thing about me is I learned from my great grandmother, Mama, and then the strong women in my life, my mother and my grandmother, how to, I guess, game recognizes game, they say. So for me, I have a very keen sense of kind of seeing through that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I'm just able to kind of pick up on if he was kind of running that game on me. But no, I really felt a genuine endearment from him from day one. He just had these endearing qualities, and I think it was just his charm that really overtook me.
So Eddie, you bought your A game, is what you
yeah,
saying, right?
Yeah, she's the only woman I never took to. I love this woman. I don't want to give the book away, but I love my wife. I loved her when she was a girl, when she was a teenager. I don't know. Some people wait a long time, like 20 or 50 years to meet that right person. And we just been blessed to meet each other at 14 years old.
Yeah.
And know that you are the one 14 years old. I mean, at that time, we didn't say we're going to get married, but, we did have that, not planned, but in our heads, like, we just the only ones for each other. We just playing these games. So, we was fortunate to meet each other at 14 instead of 40.
All right. Okay. Hey, listen. I love the Sledges. I feel like I fell in love with y'all as characters in the book, and that was like awesome to finally get to talk to y'all. But I got to pull both of y'all cards now, though. When you, so listen,
that's why we put in the book. That's why we put in the book.
So the first note that I wrote down and getting ready for the interview after I was reading the book is the very first note I wrote down was destiny marriage. For whatever reason, I'm like, it just felt destined. But then I get to the story about how y'all actually met. First of all, come on, man. Eddie wasn't even looking for Christina, right? And Christina, you sent your homegirl over there to holler for you. What's going on here?
You know what's crazy about that? Working up to that part in the book in our lives, right?
Yeah.
You see how we just could have missed each other.
Yeah.
People living next to each other, all that. So it's destined. And then when that part comes, it's like I'm running away from destiny. But for some reason, she making sure that I don't run away from destiny. Like we saying it like, this. Come on, I'm trying to go this way, but then some reason she's pulling me back to her. Like, no, you need to come this way. So I'm running from destiny when we finally meet. Yeah.
Yeah, universe was working on you, on both of y'all. Excuse me.
And then so I was somewhat shy, back then. You could say I was considered pretty, so I did have a boyfriend at the time, the big quarterback of the football team, the varsity quarterback of the football team. And I was a freshman, only a weekend, and I have the varsity football quarterback as my boyfriend.
But remember, she came after me, so...
Yeah.
So, I didn't necessarily need Eddie, but I don't know, there was something that just compelled me to him, but I was shy because he was going after a girl that was, kind of opposite of me. So I wasn't sure if he would even like me. I didn't think I was his type. And so I said, well, instead of being rejected, how about I just send my friend over there? And if he says no, then he didn't say no to my face. He said no to her face.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I see the game. Okay. It's more understandable now. I understand. But either way, Destiny was going to make this thing happen regardless of who hollered at who. So it's all good. It worked out for the best. So
yeah.
Fast forward a little bit. This love story didn't come without its share of plot twists. Is that fair to say? So,
yeah.
I mean, you guys broke up. You get back together. You broke up, but y'all got back together one time, and there was a question that got popped, and she said yes, and you guys got married. Now, what was that conversation? Well, really, I don't want to spoil it for the readers or whatever like that. But Eddie, when you made that decision, my brother, what was going through your brain? And did you just feel like this is the moment right now? I got to do it. It's no tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Once my father put me on some real, like, hey, I'm telling you the truth. Just go get it now. It was a no-brainer. I'm like, oh, because I was playing the game anyway. I was doing a lot of stuff in the army anyway. I was getting tired of that. And then I was like, really? All right, it's on. And like even when I was in high school, when it comes to Chris, I was never shy or anything like that. I'm like, just okay, let's ride. So I was like, I'm excited. Like even the day we got married, I'm like, I ain't got no butterfly. I'm excited. Let's do this. Like I've been waiting for this. Like this. So because especially since I believe that he was 100% in it. Like really going for me. I'm like, I'm really going for her. I'm like, okay, we in it.
Yeah.
But the time we had no intention of just opposing or getting married. We were just happy to see each other and spend time with each other. But yeah, it was. I was 100% in, like, oh yeah, it's on.
So, Chris, at that time, Eddie had already had a child from a previous relationship, and here you are going from being a single woman to now being thrust into these new roles very, very quickly. So you went from being single to being married to being a stepmother to being an expecting mother. That's a lot of stuff going on at one time. How was you able to kind of like reconcile all those emotions?
Oh, that's a great question. Again, I think that was another point in my life where I struggled mentally with, like you said, various emotions. I think that time of my life was probably the most difficult because I never knew what I was up against. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't know what it was to be a mom and then to be a stepmom and to be a new wife. So it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge. I struggled because I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't know. And so I think the biggest challenge with it, though, was I didn't have any support from folks, because I think most folks expected that there should be an automatic bond with a baby, you know, and I just didn't have it right away because again, like you said, I was a single young woman, very ambitious. In my mind, I was just thinking, oh, you know, we're going to get married, I'll finish school, and that would be pretty much, I'll go to work. But then life kind of took some different turns there, and I ended up, you know, being a mom pretty early. So it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge to kind of figure out how to navigate it. And I really prayed on it a lot. I talked to Eddie about it a lot. And then I just kind of took it day by day. It was a rough challenge, but ultimately I learned how to be a mom. I learned how to be a stepmom. But I think that the biggest challenge was just getting that acceptance from other people and knowing that it's okay to feel these feelings. Because you automatically think that, oh, you're supposed to have a bond, and if you don't, something's wrong with you. And so that's what I did feel at first. Oh, something must be wrong with me. But then I realized, you know what? I have to take it easy on myself. This is the first time I'm doing all of this. So it was tough. It was tough from a mental perspective.
You alluded to in the book, specifically talking about those first 2 years of y'all marriage and how that was a little bit of a rough time. How do you think that set the foundation for your marriage and giving you confidence to overcome any hurdles that came on later? Did you feel like you guys handled it in a way that it kind of propelled your marriage to a whole nother level, or?
Oh no, it's something else that's rubbed off from Big Eddie. You take him home and you keep everything in the household between you and your spouse. One of the best things about it, and we talk about it to this day. We are Army family now, and we in Georgia. So we like more than 2 states away from our families. It was no one but us. So we had to learn. And the thing about it, we was willing to learn. We knew what we had. To this day, we know what we have. There was no walking out well except for the next day when I actually get a divorce. But that's but even then, if she would have gave me a divorce, I would have been like, nah, I don't really want it.
Yeah, you can have it back.
Do this 21 years, I probably asked for it like 15 times and never got it. And I would never sign it. So we know what we have, and we knew what we had back then. We knew we had to make it work. She was special. I was special to her, and we learned that whatever we do, we keep in house. External people join in, it only gets worse. We've seen that from other couples. So it was just us, and we knew we had to make it work. And we learned the do's and don'ts. You can't say this, you can't say that. Take deep breaths. but we learn from each other because to this day, that's all we have.
I think during those 2 years, we really learned about each other. We learned how we communicate. We learned how what makes us angry. What are those kind of like hot buttons? Yeah. And I think instead of retreating, and kind of giving up on things, we said, you know what, we're in this marriage together. We knew that we were kind of like predestined. And we said, no matter what comes our way, we're just going to figure out how to deal with it. And I think that's still true to this day. Anytime we come across any obstacle, small or big, we just tackle it one thing at a time. And I think the best thing about us is we're like yin and yang. And where he's kind of like the brawn, I'm more of the softer side. And we learn that, okay, we can combine and grow stronger from it.
We accepted our roles, and once you accept your roles and you embrace it, not just accept it, you embrace it, nothing can stop you. It's sort of like we're saying in the book. We both got master's degrees, but no mistake about it. This woman is the brains of this whole marriage. 51-49, even though it's just 1%, that's a big 1%, and I accept that. And once I started accepting that, I understand that I too can lead. I can lead in a different way, and she had to follow me. My 49 is strong. It's just 1%, but that 1% tells me, okay, Ed, calm down, follow her, listen to her, and she does the same thing. But once you accept your role and you embrace it,
so let me ask this, because the book is pretty clear that you both have different, personality types, but that doesn't necessarily always say a thing about your communication type. So, if Christina and Eddie are at odds about a certain issue, whether or not it's big, small, whatever it is, what do you guys do, being that y'all got two different type of personalities? What is y'all communication style to kind of get through problems? How do you talk to one another when y'all have difference of opinion?
We still scream at each other. We still yell.
All right, well, yeah, okay. If you don't hear me, I'll speak louder.
We did that on Sunday.
Oh, please do tell. We want all the details.
I guess we just make sure we don't throw things at each other. We just listen. We just listen to each other. After we yell, just take a deep. She knows when I need to go in my zone, and I know when she got to go in her zone. But 9 times out of 10, I say I'm so much calmer than I was when we first got married. When I first got married, it was I was off. Now I just take deep breaths and just listen to her.
It's funny because we kind of switched personality types. In the beginning, I was more of the calm one, and he was more, I think, loud and had a hot temper. But now I think mine is kind of switched, and I'm a little bit more hot tempered. Like he rubbed off on me, and he's.
Damn, Eddie, you see what happens when you give up that 1%, bro?
Yeah.
That's it right there. That's a lot. That 1%.
And then
go ahead. I ain't mean to cut you off.
And then I sit there and I take deep breaths, and then I say calmly, "Why are you saying this?" And that would just burn up more. So but I still got explode bunny, but it's not as fast as it used to be.
Yeah, I had an issue, and that's an ongoing issue in my marriage as far as. Whenever you're married to somebody, you always got to work through something, because it's going to be things about your partner that some of the things you just got to accept. It's not something that's going to change. They could just try to improve on it for the sake of the union. But having the ability to say, maybe I'm not the type of person, when I get upset, I feel like rage and I don't feel like talking, while the other person might be very open and wanting to have a conversation. It's a weird negotiation that you got to kind of do, right? To kind of figure out, what, I need to come down to your level, and maybe you need to come up to mine so we can have a conversation to, not go to sleep in 2 separate rooms tonight or something like that. So it's always interesting hearing different other married couples talk about how you talk through your problems. Because it's a struggle sometimes. But y'all know.
And I give it to her. You know, we made sure that from day one we always slept in the same bed. Like no matter how mad we are, we don't have to touch each other. But we know I'm not sleeping on the couch, or I'm not leaving the house and not coming back. So from day one, she was like, we're not doing that. And we go to bed. If we go to bed angry, it's fine. But at least we're in the same bed together. So, I got that from her. So it was good. And plus, I never saw a marriage in my life. Like my parents were married, but they was too old, and so I never saw a union. But she did. So she probably saw that.
Yeah, and I think. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that the other thing is at this point, I think at this stage, and 21 years in, we sometimes do kind of have that negotiation. I think it's more of, okay, like he said on Sunday, Eddie said on Sunday, he was like, okay, we're not going to continue this. And he just said, I'm going to play PlayStation, and then we'll talk about it later. So, so, and I think it's just, I recognize, okay, he's going to be okay. I think in the beginning, I used to worry, the 2-year mark was like, oh no, is he going to leave? But no, we just realized, okay, we just need to kind of calm down, come back, collect ourselves, and then discuss this later. So that's kind of how we handle it now.
So I find it interesting. If I split your book in half and I read the end of the book first and then go back and read or kind of delve into the beginning of the book, you would almost kind of feel like you're looking at two different sets of people. And it's very interesting because obviously mental health plays a part in everybody's life, and it's only up until now where we start to kind of destigmatize stuff and start having honest conversations about things and not throwing things under the wayside. You guys' upbringings was very, very dynamic and different from one another. But one of the things that I found interesting about both of you guys' upbringing is y'all both grew up with step parents, right? So
yes,
there can be some lingering issues whenever you hadn't had the opportunity to reconcile certain emotions as a child. So I guess my question, well, first to Eddie and then to Chris, but to you, Eddie, first, do you believe that you've made peace with the circumstances surrounding your mother's death?
You talking about my stepmother or my real mother?
Your real mother.
See, I never knew her, and all I got was the one-sided story from Big Eddie, which is a story. It could be two-sided story. So I never met anyone on my family side. So I made peace with it. And that's the beautiful thing about writing this book. I take this dramatic part and I accept it. What they was doing, what my mother and father was doing to help her, while I was in her stomach. And it's crazy because it's like, wow, like, the way I came out, the way that I am now, I could have been the opposite, But I made peace with it because that's who I am. That made little Eddie to Big Eddie. I embrace it. So I made peace with it. I see pictures of her and my grandmother, or stepmother, told me about it. I made peace with it. I embraced it, and because that's who I am. I can't erase it or anything like that. So that's what I did. I understand that's who I am, and I just kept going with it.
And Chris, you had teenage parents, and I believe if I read in the book correctly, you said your mother was born to teenage parents too, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
So I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So
no. Mm-hmm.
Being the circumstances surrounding your biological father, do you feel like you grew up with any resentment toward him, or was your stepfather Alfredo, who stepped in, did he do a good enough job to where it really didn't have your mind on it?
He did an excellent job. I never felt like I was lacking anything because my father Alfredo, I consider my father was there from day one. I mean, literally from the day I was born. So I didn't know anything else. I met my biological father, I want to say maybe two times in my childhood. And so
what was that like?
That was interesting. I mean, it was a little awkward, you know. Yeah, I think primarily because I knew that he was my biological father. I was 7 years old, 7 or 8, when I had to spend some time with him. I had a chance to spend some time with him. I think he felt awkward too because, you know, he didn't raise me, so he knew that he wasn't in my life. But you know, I've always had like an old soul, and I think I was very observant, kind of picking up on the cues that, you know, it was an awkward situation, but I accepted it. You know, I accepted that this man was my biological father. He gave me like half of my DNA, but I didn't feel like I was ever lacking anything because Alfredo did such a great job that I never, until I got into, I want to say maybe my 30s, late 30s, I realized that, you know, from a biological health perspective, it would be nice to know more about his health history, because I started experiencing some health issues, and then I later found out that he died from colon cancer, which can be hereditary. And so that gave me pause, you know, and so I was able to kind of reach out to a family member on his side and find out more about his health history, which is very helpful. But no, I didn't feel like I lacked anything.
Did you feel any type of resentment towards him for essentially abandoning your mother in that situation, even though they was teenagers? Did you feel a certain type of way about it after you got pregnant at a young age? No, I didn't. I think because I didn't know him, and then I think also because, like I said, I had kind of like that old soul where I realized that relationships could be complicated, and for whatever reason, I just accepted it. I think I accepted it at an early age and didn't feel any level of like resentment or you know, hate for him or anything like that, because I just figured it worked out the way it was supposed to work out, and I'm actually happy it did. So yeah.
With that.
So Eddie, you was pretty descriptive in the book in regards to your upbringing, the environment that you was growing up in, and you know, the jungle that is Brooklyn. And a lot of times when kids grow up in environments like that, they become, you know, products of their environment, you know, nature versus nurture. And you was pretty forthcoming in the book and saying that you felt like you had PTSD before you even became a teenager. The hood PTSD, if you get what I mean. Not comparing it to what you might have heard about from the Army. Growing up in an environment like that, where it could be so difficult, especially for a young black boy, to develop their own identity and find their place in society. How did you conduct yourself? Like, what type of kid was you? And also, how did you eventually learn the thing that you wanted to have a part of your personality and your character as you became a young man? Where'd you draw from?
Once again, I took the good and bad from Big Daddy. Even to this day, I call my in-laws. I knew my in-laws more close to 30 years, and I call them Mrs. and Mr. to this day. Because he was an older man, he made sure that I call someone Mr. Else they tell me something different. So I knew some things I could do and some things I couldn't do because he wasn't having that. You know, and it wasn't like I wanted to do something to disappoint him. I knew he put some hands on me. Yeah. You know, and you know, so I know off the bat, you know, some things I can't do, some things I can. But I was mostly, like I said in the book, you know, when I had my first fight, from that moment on, I didn't trust. I barely trust anybody. So I was more like a loner kid. You know, if I stayed in the house, you know, I played by myself. But if I went out, it's like I couldn't relax because I don't know if this guy that I know for so long will have jokes on me or try to disrespect me in a way or stuff like that, and I have to fight, or do it's for young people, especially black men, young boys in the hood and rough neighborhoods, man. It's a thin line to say, do I snap or does he mean no harm? Because if you snap, you go into a new world. Like if you cross that line, you're in a new world and you can't go back.
You gotta make
snap
decisions, life decisions.
Yeah. And then at that may not be a time for you to snap and come out your character and try to fight someone. So I was always, even to this day, I'm always, like thinking about the worst of people, even though I'm happy to be around you. But I could believe that you would turn on me and be like, it's not shocking.
Yeah, you're skeptical, but you won't get caught off guard. It's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah. My third eye gotta stay open. So and it's sad because when you're around people for 20, 30 years and you still thinking that someone that they might know or you might know that they might know, or something like that will say something, and you have to adjust. I just knew that Big Eddie wasn't playing some of the things like I want to do, I wasn't cursed. I wasn't a bad kid to be cursing in front of adults, but I could do it around my friends, growing up. Like certain things I knew that even when I became a young man, I can't do in front of him. I don't want to do in front of him because it's disrespectful for him, or when I was growing up with hands on it. But all that come back to the drama, the trauma that I embraced. And now looking back at it, that's what it was. But growing up, it was just I never said to myself, why me? Why do I live like this? Why I gotta live like with parents like this? Because I never had the opportunity or option to even put it in my head. I just thought that was life for me.
Yeah, you have opportunity.
It was always, so it wasn't why me questions to myself. It was always, oh well, we don't have food. Oh well, we don't have tissue. Oh well. We don't know about these friends out here. You got to become a wolf now. Oh well, it's never why me got to be in this life.
Make it to the
so
next
I
day.
never looked at it as bad, but it was there when I write back on it.
So you both had two different levels of parenting and family dynamics overall. Chris, you was a little bit more exposed to things outside of the environment, growing up in Brooklyn, and have family members who exposed you to, some more positive experiences. Not to say that, Eddie, you didn't have any positive experiences like that, but sometimes when you grow up a certain way, you can kind of overcompensate when you become a parent. So if you had a very rough childhood, you might be, overcompensate and show extra love and to your children. Not saying that extra love is bad, but sometimes parents can smother their kids in love. And if you had a childhood where you felt like you had these ideas of like grandeur and you wanted nice things and all that, a lot of times if you aren't able to afford it, when you grow up and become a parent, you give all that stuff to your kids. How do you feel like your upbringing affected how you guys parent your kids? Do you guys feel like you overcompensate?
No, but there's certain things that triggers my childhood that I make sure they don't take it for granted. For example, they don't waste food. They're not wasting food. Because I barely have food to eat, so we're not wasting food. You're going to eat it, or someone's going to eat it, but we're not wasting food.
Eddie, why I feel like you be pulling stuff out the trash? Like, nah, finish this.
Nah, but it's crazy. Stuff will be in the refrigerator like 6 days, and I'm about to eat it. It's like, it's green. I ain't green yet, but
okay.
Yeah, but, like the ends of the bread, the ends of the bread, we don't waste that. Like, nah, you can eat that, that's bread.
Yeah, nah.
But like it's crazy. Until we got married, I never used paper towels or garbage bags. And then we go shopping one day, and she goes, "Hey, we getting this?" I'm like, "Nah, we didn't get that. We don't need that. It costs too much." She's like, "No, it's not.
A waste of money."
So, but for our children, they understand. They've been understanding the history of us from when they were small. So they understand where we stand on both sides. And we don't overcompensate for them, but also we let them earn it and understand that, you could give this down and teach your children this. So, but, you don't waste food and other stuff too.
I think for me, I didn't really have any issues with that growing up. But I think we try to show a balance, because the crazy thing is when you're on the other side, right? So we both grew up in Brooklyn, in the city environment, in the inner city. But now we live in the suburbs. And so we didn't think that, okay, of course we want to give our kids a better life than the environment, especially that we had. So we didn't think of what could be the opposite of that, right? So now they don't have that same exposure that we did to. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. But they're kind of sheltered, you know what I mean? Because they didn't have that level of experience. So the way we kind of balance that is we show them documentaries, we share information with them. Like, for example, the documentary Storm Over Brooklyn, which is about Yusuf Hawkins. We kind of showed them that dynamics and how things were.
So we lived in that.
So we teach them through those means because they don't live that. They don't live in that environment.
Right.
But I don't think we overcompensated. No, but I think we have a healthy balance. I don't think it's either one way or the other. We're not super strict, and we're not like overly spoiling them. I think we have a good balance so that they learn. And our oldest daughter, she's 20, and she has told us that. She was like, oh well, I really felt like I had the best of kind of both worlds, just kind of understanding where you guys came from, how you came to where you are. They both read the book also. And so they felt like, oh wow, we're blessed, like we're really fortunate, and they know that. They're like, oh, we're really fortunate. So, but they don't take it for granted, and that's a good thing.
So, what year are we up to in marriage?
21.
21. Okay, so if you was talking to, a young man and woman who just got engaged today, and they said, Mr. and Mrs. Sledge, give us some advice that's going to get us to 21 years. Give me one thing that you think is key, one from each of you.
Oh, just one. It will be, listen. Listen to each other. Just take a deep breath and just listen. Because when you're arguing, you're not going to go anywhere, and you're just making each other heated. But if you listen to, even if you're not arguing, if you listen to each other, just listen to what that person is saying, you'll find out something. People tell you something for a reason. People tell you something because they want you to know it. They want you to be knowledgeable of it. So just listen.
I think for me, it would be understanding, compassionate. I think people think that's probably a simple thing, especially in marriage, but because I know, at least for us, we definitely understood early on that we did have this dichotomy in our upbringing and our personalities as well. And so over the years, as we talked about it more and realized, understanding each other, I think really has made us stronger because we understand why we do certain things. And I think that goes back to, kind of dissecting and reflecting and, that mental health aspect of why is it that you do things this way, or why is it you're this way? Instead of being critical of it, we try to understand each other. And so I think that's very helpful, especially the first year or two of marriage, is really, instead of maybe being defensive, be more understanding.
Was in either one of you families growing up mental health like a major conversation, or even something that even came up in conversation, or no?
Nah, the only time I heard about it was when my father and his friends or cousins was drinking, and they'll say something like, I don't know, they like talk about my mother being schizophrenic and stuff like that, or but no one sat down and addressed it. It was no Cosby Show in my house. It was sort of like something like The Wire. So no one actually sat down and talked to you about it or explained to you what was going on. It was just like, this is what it was. Keep it moving.
Me, no, the same thing. I don't think having an acceptance of, speaking to a therapist or a psychologist was ever something anyone in my family thought of until my brother was killed. Then all of us realized the importance of grief counseling.
Yes.
And that's when we really took into effect the importance of having that mental health support, and why it's just as important as every other part of your body. We go to doctors for everything else. So why not our mind? Why not our mental health? And that's when I realized the importance of it. I mean, I had a taste of it in college. That was my first really interaction with the therapist and the importance of it, of one. But then after grief counseling was when I really fully accepted that, it's okay to have these conversations with someone else. And, when you're having anxiety or grief, we don't always have the tools for how we deal with that. And so in my family, no one really talked about it until this traumatic thing, happened with my brother's death. And that's when we started to really, I think, have an acceptance of it.
I think it's cool too, because I think you guys are going to be, the bridge to making it more prevalent in the family, right? Because now you growing up without having conversations about that, or maybe it being stigmatized in a certain type of way. Now you guys, get to write this beautiful book and also be advocates for mental health with your kids. So now y'all completely broke the cycle of, the family history, and now turning a positive outlook, positive stigma onto mental health. So I applaud y'all for that. So what else is going on? You got the first book out the way. What are the Sledges going to be working on next?
She's the brain.
I'm the CEO.
She's the CEO.
Yeah. So the next things we have coming is a screenplay for the book. We hope to make it into a movie. So we're working on that. We have some nonfiction books actually in the works as well. And so we also, through this book, we decided to found the company Sledge House Media, which is our publishing company, as well as ultimately, we want to be able to produce our movies and TV shows from it. So that's really our biggest focus right now. We're going to be at a Black Writers Weekend in June as featured authors. So we're looking forward to that.
Very nice.
Some really good, exciting things coming.
Might I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
And this is a suggestion just out of love, just because I got a mind for these things. Y'all need to stop playing to go ahead and start a YouTube channel immediately, like next week. Like to have a
Really?
Yeah, why not? I mean, you got obviously a great story that is, book worthy, whatever like that. You guys have come a long way since y'all childhood. Y'all have endured a lot. You have a lot of great life perspective that you can impart on people. Why not have a YouTube channel like a Black married couple talking about the things that make their marriage work in spite of all the stuff that happened before, the breakups, the getting back together, the family tragedy, the chaos of not knowing what's for dinner and all this other stuff, and being broke and finances and all this other stuff, and to have the outlook of what y'all doing. And we got degrees, and oh man, we writing books. That's a YouTube channel right there with millions of subscribers. Why not do this?
Huh. I don't know. We didn't think about that. I know someone
y'all
did.
Should go ahead and do it. I don't even want no kickback. Y'all can just go ahead and take that out.
Okay.
Run that. Y'all need to do that.
She's gonna tell me the time of day I'll be there.
All right, that works. That works.
Yeah.
Mr. and Mrs. Sledge, I am fresh out of questions, but I must say, It's been an absolute pleasure talking to y'all. I'm glad I finally got the chance to meet y'all. After reading the book, I felt connected to y'all, but finally hearing y'all voices and seeing y'all picture, it's like I feel like y'all extended family. So it was a pleasure talking to y'all. I loved having y'all on the show. I wish y'all the most success going forward. I would definitely be paying attention and definitely be reposting, resharing, liking everything y'all put out, because I think Sledge House Media got some stuff coming. So I thank y'all once again.
Thank you for having us.
Hey man, we truly appreciate it. We know it took time out today. So for another person to say that,
no problem.